What is up, man? It's been a whole year since like this game was conceptualized. Do you imagine that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Entire year. Because we had this game pretty much like on paper, and there was no name, there was no we didn't even think of the UI. We're just like, all right, this is the game. It's on these pieces of computer paper, and this is what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was at the end of January or maybe it was at the beginning of February. I think the beginning of February is when we actually made the code for it, like the
Yeah,
project.
the end of January, I think, is when we came up with the idea.
Yeah, so it's technically been a year since Linklight has been developed, or yeah, so
Yeah.
it went from a piece of paper to some code.
hmm
That is crazy to me. Whole year since COVID too. You imagine that?
Yeah.
COVID detected. I can't even
Goes
believe.
by pretty fast.
I'm in fucking disbelief by how fast it's gone. All right, enough of dwelling on the hard times and stuff, but yeah, get into the update. So this has definitely been a bit of a slower month, I would say, but we got a lot of important stuff done. The main thing has been the optimizations. Um, so to explain why this has been a problem, Linklight uses a custom engine, and there's a couple reasons why we decided to do that. First off, I want to say if you're someone who's thinking about making a game and you're saying, I'm going to make my own engine, I'm going to use that to make my own game, don't do it. Unless you like to suffer, which Dan loves to do, for example. Because it is a very big task, especially even for a small team of one person or two people, even five people, it is a task. The only
Yeah.
reason why we have decided to do that is because this engine has been in development since 2017. So that's the only reason why we decided to use it for this project is because we already kind of had something because we've tried to make a couple of games before, they just didn't work out completely.
hmm
Yeah, so I would definitely not recommend it. It is a tremendous task to do. So we're gonna get into kind of why this update was needed. So, like I said, the engine's been in development since 2017, and ever since then we've been expanding upon it. And I want you to imagine you're like trying to make a sculpture and you're like just add like you have a base and you're just adding shit to like the top of it, like stacking it up, and then you see the bottoms falling, so you have to like add like just quickly put stuff there to like kind of support it. The engine's development was kind of like that. I think that's a good analogy. Then would you say so?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of thrown together.
yeah, a little thrown together at times, and so there we knew for a fact it's definitely runnable. When we released the game ran, I would say okay. The game ran decently, I would say, on most computers. But as we made the larger levels with the winter update, a lot of those issues came to light. Um, I'm gonna put it on the screen here for a second, but this is footage I took from before this update. And the reason I use this level as an example is because this is actually, I think, the biggest level in the game, or one of them. And I'm getting about 20 FPS on this level. I have an i5 processor and a GTX 2070. I wish I had a 2070. A GTX 970. And my computer's quite old, but it can still kind of run most things decently. It's an older processor, but it runs okay. And for me, the FPS was abysmal, 20 FPS. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna pull up the level here on the main game, which is the current version. Same level here. And if you look to the top left, you can see it looks like I'm averaging 150 FPS, about 150, 148. So I personally went from 20 FPS to about 150, 140. So that's a 700% gain, right? 700%,
hmm
right
Yeah.
around, yeah. So we made a massive improvement, which I'm very happy about, and I know you're very happy as well
Yeah.
to make that kind of improvement. The FPS performance improvement is going to be very different depending on your computer. I would say if you're someone who has ran the game and everything's kind of been okay, it might be a bit smoother. Like if you have a really good computer, you're probably not going to notice too much, but it's still you'll still see like an improvement.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's been running the game on a laptop or a less powerful device, especially, you will definitely notice an improvement, I would say.
hmm
Now, there's still more work to be done in this regard, I'm sure, but this is a great leap forward for us. Um, Pretty much, the entire rendering process has been overhauled. The entire rendering process has just been overhauled. like that. That's why we needed about 12 months for the update, because there was a lot of stuff to redo and and get rid of unnecessary function calls, as you said, Dan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan. That was mostly Dan's focus, and Dan did a wonderful job. Thank you, Dan. Round
Thank
of
you.
applause for you, bro. Round of applause getting that done. Personally, I was refactoring a lot. This was a busier month for me, but I was refactoring a lot of the internal code as well, just to have a better code base to work off of. Because again, if you're trying to make the sculpture and stack it up high, if you really don't take the time to make the base nicer, it's a lot harder to work on top of it, and it could come crashing down. Hopefully, that would never happen, but you know. So we made a lot of internal fixes and internal optimizations, and it's going to be a great base for us to work for the rest of the year. So that's pretty much the update. Again, it was really just making the render better. Everyone should expect to see a lot of better performance, much more better performance. Using two positives there. I personally have a 144 hertz monitor, so I mean this FPS is kind of good for me, at least on this level. Dan, you have 60, right? 60 hertz monitor. Yeah, Dan has to jump on the 144 hertz train, but yeah, your computer's better, right? How much was the FPS for you? Was it better? Like, how much of a jump was it?
It's kind of hard to say because I only tested on my VM, so
yeah,
it was never really too consistent.
But you noticed improvement on your VM though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So Dan's virtual machine had an improvement as well, which is not it's not a good indicator, but it's still noticeable. It should be noticeable for everyone, which is what we want. The game the game is dependent on your core performance, like single core performance. We haven't tested the GPU, like really seeing how GPUs perform differently. I don't think. I think when we were doing playtesting, I took note of all the GPUs, and some of my friends with integrated. Right? Yeah, the integrated graphics cards. Some of theirs, they actually ran the game okay, not amazingly, but okay. So that is something we have to look into more, though. I would say, right?
Yeah.
Seeing how those are affected. Yeah. So moving on from that's pretty much the update. Again, hopefully everyone, if you ever had issues running the game before, hopefully they're solved by this update. If you're someone that did have issues and you see a big performance or you still have some issues, please let us know because we still want to look into it more. So it's time to move on to the future and what's next for the game. And honestly dreading this a little bit because the next change is one of our biggest milestones, and I know it's not going to be easy. Actually, before I talk about that, let me talk about the UI first. Let's probably mention that first because that's a little smaller. So, while Linklight was in development, the current UI that you see now for the game is basically the final result of what I came up with. And I was actually experimenting with a much more minimalist UI, and I couldn't make it work at the time, but a couple days ago, I got a really good idea for it, and I'm going to really sit down and try to flesh it out this month. So, I have an idea to make the entire UI much more minimalist, I would say. Like, if you look here, you can see how... I mean, Linklight is essentially minimalist, but it's not entirely. You can see here, like, we have a lot of gradients here, a lot of, like, inner glow effects. Even this menu, I wouldn't really call minimalist. It is quite complicated. Even if you look at the options menu, there's, like, unique gradients for every menu. This isn't too crowded, though, I would say, but there's, like, unique gradients. There's a lot of different kind of colors everywhere. And the new minimalist UI I have in mind is basically just black and white with splashes of color here and there. I'm going to see how it ends up coming up. There's also a chance I may flesh it out more and I might just not like it or might not think it's good enough. But I am quite confident in it. And what I think I'm going to do is once I get the UI finalized, we're going to host a poll where I'm going to show off screen comparisons of like the menus I came up with and maybe some gameplay as well. And we're going to see what people think of that. We're going to want you all to vote on which UI you like better, the current one or the new one. And depending on how that vote goes, we'll make the shift. I'm quite excited for the new UI. I have not done with it yet, but I want everyone's feedback on what they think would be better for the game to take, because the UI is a very big part of this game, being a 2D puzzle game.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen immediately. I think for you want to do some more optimizations, right? With the
I was going to optimize the object deletion which would be noticeable, like when the particles fade out and they delete themselves.
Yeah, I would say also for having levels deleted, like whenever you finish a level, that level gets deallocated. So that's
Well, yeah,
good.
like when anything gets
Yeah,
deallocated, pretty
so that
much.
should be an overall kind of benefit too. It's a bit of a minor change, but it'll help out. I would say, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
having that. So that can be. You'll expect to see. I'm probably gonna have that done in the next 2 weeks. So maybe towards like the middle or end of this month, expect to see that poll hopefully with the new UI, and then based on the voting and how that goes, we may spend the next month implementing that new UI. Because that's obviously going to take time to reskin everything and redo it kind of everything. So that's for the short term. Slight more optimizations, and that new UI would be the main thing to look forward to. But we're going to talk about the long term because we kind of already know what's going to be next. So this is something that kind of scares me tremendously because this game has been a real test of skills for both of us. And the next thing we want to add, and we always knew we wanted to add this, is generated puzzles, randomly generated puzzles. And those randomly generated puzzles would be used as like daily puzzles. So every day you log on, there'd be new puzzles for you to solve. And I broke this kind of down into two parts. So I would have to make an AI to pretty much solve puzzles or see if a puzzle is solvable, that's a whole task to do on its own. And I would also have to make the actual generator to make a level. I can just make a whole random level, choose the colors and stuff and lay out all the paths. And that's a very complicated process. And honestly, it's something I've never done before. I think I am definitely capable of doing it. I'm not sure how long it would take. I have a lot. I do not think it would be doable in a month. So, depending on when we start work on that, Linklight, that'll be the next major update to Linklight, but it will definitely take a little bit. I'm gonna project maybe 2 to 3 months, but I will make sure to update you guys on how it's going. We don't want to leave you in the dark for like 3-4 months. Every month we'll make sure to update you on what we're doing. Because we're always constantly working on the game, always kind of thinking of like what can be better, what we can improve on, or always working on the code here and there. Yeah, and also Dan, you want to talk about your next addition to the engine?
Yeah. So I was thinking about adding a panning and a zooming feature for levels. So if there's a big level, you could sort of zoom into it instead of having it be squished on your screen.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and show off this level again. I really like showing this level off because again, it's one of the biggest. So if you're someone that has a really big monitor, this is not too big of a problem for you. Because I guess you can pretty much interact with the level like normal. But if you have a smaller display, it's still workable, but it's not super nice to work with. It'd be a lot nicer if you could like zoom into a portion and kind of pan around, and you could zoom into different sections instead of having these objects be so small on the screen over here. So that's probably the next thing that's going to happen, and as Dan said, it's going to be a mix of the engine and the game. So that is also going to take some time. So I would say that's, I think also in the future, different operating system support, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's something else that'll be covered, but that'll be that'll be for a bit later. Like we'll probably talk about that in another video coming up. But yeah, so immediately coming up, you can expect to see a new UI and hopefully a vote. That's assuming that I don't fail the UI, which I don't think I will. And probably some minor optimizations again with the object deletion. For the much more long term, again, those puzzles are definitely going to take a while to get done and do them right. And I'm also going to have to implement them in a way so they're not boring. Can't just have rant. Like, I'm going to try to make the puzzles have a theme to them almost. Like, I'll talk more about that when we get closer to that. But I still have to make that entire algorithm for both of those. Also, something I forgot to mention, the level solving algorithm is actually going to be needed. That's going to have to be used in the workshop as well. Because when players upload levels to the workshop later on, we don't want them to be able to upload an unsolvable level because, like, what would be the point of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be used in kind of two places, which is good. But yeah, those are pretty much the plans next for Linklight, I would say. I know it's going to be a real test of our skills, but we're very confident that we'll be able to do it. So yeah, the new UI will be up next, and content-wise, you'll see a new UI, hopefully. Assuming that all goes well, and randomly generated puzzles in the future. I think that's mostly everything, right? I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you guys again for all the support. You know,
Thank you.
it really means a lot to us. I'm really excited to add the random. Like I've like ever since we made this game, we've been thinking about like, oh my God, imagine we made a randomly generated like levels, right? So
Yeah.
I'm really fucking excited to get them in. I hope you guys are gonna love them too. It's gonna take a bit, but we're gonna be working my hardest to try to get those in. So thank you guys again. That's pretty much it for this video. Expect to see that poll, and please vote on it if you end up seeing it, because we definitely want feedback on the new UI. So we'll see you guys for now, and hopefully in the next video. Thank you all again.
Thank you. Bye.